blankets, money, and mattresses to the residents. The 40,000 displaced families will be given 10,000 shillings each. That's where we are. All right. On page 11, you're going to read that story on White House team wants city audited. Page 11. Now, if you look at page 8, after doctors, nurses to issue strike notice, that's a story that's been covered on page 8. E-learning ghosts return to haunt education bosses, story has been covered on page 7. And Botswana write history as Kenyans flop at world relays, the sports story on page 39. Mbappe and PSG to aim to seize the moment in a semi-final clash. Now French champions hoping to overturn a 1-0 first leg deficit in Champions League. Also Mbappe is keen to end his 7-year stay at PSG by winning a European trophy. All right, Dortmund's also dreaming of a Champions League final. They are going to also play tonight as well in those semi-final matches. Second leg, that are going to decide who the finalists are going to be. Also, we are waking up to this morning. Man United was playing Crystal Palace yesterday, and as expected, they lost heavily to Crystal Palace. No answer at all. 4-0 to Crystal Palace, with the likes of Olise having a training game yesterday. I mean, Crystal Palace now have beaten Manchester United home and away. In fact, if you want to talk about the goals that they've scored, Man United, it is 5-0 this season. And Man United are actually leading in terms of the goal conceded this season. Sorry, let me correct that statement. It is their highest ever conceding season in terms of goals. I mean, you got to go back to 1960s and 70s for you to find the amount of goals that they conceded. Their goal difference as of last night has again gone to -3, 2 seasons when the goal difference is on a negative now. If you compare Moyes and Eric Ten Hag, in fact, Eric Ten Hag is performing worse than Moyes 10 years ago at this stage of the season. But very few are still talking about Eric Ten Hag. They're still talking about Cristiano Ronaldo and the rest of them. But if you look at that team, it's in a sorry state. I said 6 matches ago that if Liverpool, Arsenal and Man City stopped playing, none of the teams on the Premier League will catch up with them. None. Absolutely. They've been abysmal, substandard, fake, if you want to use those words. It's a sad state to be a Man United fan. And Arsenal is going to beat them 6 goals plus this weekend. Oof. Sorry. Is all I gotta say. All right, on the Business Daily, both so not both, and I see 20 share index on 0.54% on the positive, and I see all share 0.26% of the negative. And the biggest story here is how top executives siphoned 6 billion shillings from SACCO's umbrella body. There's also relief for workers as firms signal end to pay raise freeze. That's it. Right, now away from issues to deal with newspapers and the sorry Man United. Let's then cross over to our newsroom this morning for top stories this morning. Welcome back. Today marks, actually yesterday marked day 54 of the doctor strike, with KMPDU calling on the government. We're going to take that again this morning, with KMPDU calling on the government to stop the chest-thumping attitude and foot-dragging behavior. Now, this comes as the Labour and Employment Court orders the discussion between doctors and government should be concluded in 48 hours.
For the union makes us strong.
Viva Kempinu, viva!
Viva! Today marks the day 54 of our strike. And our role is to strike and strike and strike until we get a return to work agreement. I want to emphasize that a return to work formula that violates the sanctity of collective bargaining agreement is useless and is not in any way viable. And therefore we hope, based on the current situation in the country, that government will stop the chest-thumping attitudes and foot-dragging behavior in resolving this issue of strike. And when we go with them to meetings, they'll be there solely to resolve the issues rather than egos, as we have said earlier. Therefore, as KMPDU, all our National Advisory Council and negotiation team are ready in all these 48 hours to meet the government to resolve the issues. And as we say, our discussion is based on the sanctity of the CBA. There's no way and there's no any other way that you can tell us, or you can reiterate, or you can tell us to believe that if we have a return to work agreement that is not anchored in the CBA, then the formula will be implemented. We have had promises before, and that's why we are focused on seeing commitments and results. We gave a strike notice on 6th of March 2024, and now 4 days later, we have seen government still struggling to understand some of the issues that we had put in place. We have seen that they have no will to implement them, because if they had a goodwill, from 6th of March to now in May, most of these things will have been done to show that they actually want to do them. But we are still back and forth on issues that should have been done in the right way. We are seeing them reinventing the wheel, like in posting of medical doctor interns. Yet, there's a clear guideline on how this should be done. We are seeing them reinventing the wheel on the issue of postgraduate training. We are seeing them not understanding very well that they owe us arrears over 7 years, yet the judgments on this particular matter. So it's high time when you meet with them, they should not tell us it's their document or the highway, because that is what led for both teams to have a return to work agreement which was filed in court today.
The obstacle posed by ego-driven actions from the government should not impede the progress towards resolving this crisis and ending the strike promptly. Our collective bargaining agreement stands as a cornerstone of our negotiation.
Chama kitasimama na kumecha tapita, lakini chama kitasimama. Chama kitasimama.
Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja has confirmed to the Senate Public Accounts Committee that Nairobi Metropolitan Services left behind a 16 billion shilling spending bill and several unfinished projects within the county. Sakaja, who appeared before the committee to answer to 2 audit reports of the financial year 2021 and 2022, confirmed that Nairobi County remitted over 27 billion shillings to NMS during its tenure. However, NMS left behind a pending bill that is still under scrutiny.
To push that down the throat of the county, I told them, listen, why are we being asked to pay for this 1 billion? Yet the staff at NMS were both county and national.
The Public Accounts Committee members have, however, proposed that the Nairobi Metropolitan Services Management Team be summoned to answer to several other audit queries raised by the Auditor General for the financial year in question. After Nairobi, Governor Johnson Sakaja honored a summon by the committee to answer to 2 audit queries by Nancy Gathungu.
From Nairobi to that entity. And the following year, there's also some money. The total amount that Nairobi County government sent to NMS was 27 billion. And then after that, a pending bill of 16 billion. So Nairobians need to be told how 43 billion was spent in 2 years. I told that PS Gadesha that, you people cannot try to twist the county government or to bully the county government into paying for what you incurred. Until they pay and conclude, they can't hand those to us. And we ask them to fast track so that we can finish these projects. Because now, going forward, if, for instance, I'll give you an example of Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital. One of the buildings has a pending payment.
Sakaja, on matters of pending bills, remained adamant that the county government of Nairobi will not pay legal pending bills that run into 10 billion shillings. The city chief said that some of the claims which have been pending for years are questionable, and paying them will render crucial services to the ground. Sakaja proposed the formation of a task force to look into the payments, a move outlawed by Trans Nzoia Court. Sakaja is of mind that going forward, the county government should hire internal lawyers and put them on a retainer to avoid such a dilemma.
In most of these cases, there are letters of instruction, Governor, that originate from the county. There's correspondence between the government and those lawyers. There is even agreements on fees between the county government and some of these lawyers.
What was flagged was how 11 lawyers are owed 10 billion. But what was reported is that 11 lawyers were paid 10 billion. That is impossible, Chair. We will not be able to pay salaries. You know, that is our entire on-source revenue. In that financial year, for instance, we only paid 287 million shillings.
Governor Sakaja insists that the county owes power supplier 456 million shillings following an in-depth investigation into the bills owed to Kenya Power of alleged 11,000 meter accounts, where the county realized 3,000 meter accounts were missing, which massively shot down the bill owed from a whopping 1.7 billion shillings to 900 million shillings, with a chunk of payments being made to meter accounts registered out of Nairobi, including Kiambu, Turkana and Kisii counties.
Chairman, the total amount of 1,460,542,895 relates to the outstanding amount of pending bills demanded by Kenya Power.
It talks about reconciliation of the bills for Nairobi, verification of meters. Some meters were found, you know, reading other county governments. I think those Kiambu, those Turkana, Kisii county government, but bills being charged to Nairobi. Yeah.
Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Governors across all the 57 counties have been asked to focus on settling the eligible pending bills, which now stand at 150.66 billion shillings. Speaking as he opened the 23rd session of the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council (IEBC), which took place at his official presidential place or residential place in Karen on Monday, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said the government is committed to disbursing the amount to the counties on time.
Has been very rampant, and many.
During the IBEC meeting, DP Gachagua emphasized on Kenya Kwanza's dedication to promptly allocating funds to counties. Meanwhile, the deputy president highlighted a significant decrease of 8.6 billion in pending bills over the past 9 months, indicating a 5.4%.
There is also steady progress in reduction of outstanding pending bills. As of March 31st, 2024, the total amount of pending bills reported by 47 counties was 150.66 billion Kenya shillings. This reflects a reduction of 8.61 billion shillings over the past 9 months since the start of the 2023/24 financial year. This represents a decrease of 5.4%. By the end of the fiscal year, we anticipate that this figure will decrease significantly. We need to do more to settle all eligible pending bills and process all that is considered ineligible to the satisfaction of our businessmen at both levels of government. I wish to restate the commitment of this administration to timely disbursement of funds to counties. The National Treasury also cleared the equitable share to counties for November and December 2023 as resolved in the 22nd ordinary session.
Despite fiscal hurdles, he also noted that 66.5% of the total allocation has already been disbursed to counties.
We have commenced transferring motor vehicles, machinery, and other equipment to the counties. The most recent transfer occurred in Uasin Gishu County. Additionally, we have finished valuing assets in 30 counties, and the ownership documentation for transfer is ongoing. Further, we have concluded the handover of the construction of county headquarters in 5 devolved units, including Tana River, Lamu, Isiolo, Tharaka Nithi, and Nyandarua. These headquarters have been under construction for over 10 years. The respective counties can now complete their own construction with support from the National Treasury.
Brian Amwai, Lookuptv.
It's been 5 months into 2024, and these are the sentiments of Kenyans on how this has been. Majid Hussain brings you more in your opinion matters this.
Almost everyone, if not everyone, have goals set under different timelines, most often from the new year. Question is, how is your 2024, and have you achieved your set goals so far? We are in the streets just to get what Kenyans have to say.
24 ni mwaka ngumu sana. Kwa kimaisha imekuwa ngumu zaidi hata kuliko miaka zingine. Maana matarajio yangu ilikuwa hata mwaka huu nilikuwa nafikiria labda mambo itakuwa mazuri, vile tuliaigizwa mambo itakuwa mazuri.
Hii mwaka imeanza tu wenyewe na ups and downs. Kuna venye tulikuwa mtu amepanga resolutions tu zake, like kwanza biashara, then vitu zinapanda, then ukienda kuamka tena ndo hizo floods zinabeba kila kitu. So we are hoping maybe government itatusaidia kutu employ, si wenye tuna kazi, si jobless corner. Yeah. Maybe kila kitu itakuwa sawa.
Ile changamoto tumekuwa na hii 2024 ni hali ngumu ya maisha. Maisha imekuwa ngumu, so sisi kama vijana jaribu kwaso mapolisi ndio hawa. Sasa kama hata hapa sasa town tukisimama hivi na kanga tu na wasiwasi. Kuna maaskari jii wanaitwa maraino. Kazi yao tu ni kushika kama vijana kuwapeleka hapa Kamukunzi, wamewekwa mahali, jii wanakula 2,000 alafu unaachiliwa. Kufinyiliwa mazee huwezi pumua. Unaona? Walituambia watatupatia makazi, kazi hakuna.
Living imeenda juu sana. Ukiangalia kutoka nyuma, sukari tulikuwa tunanunuanga 230 kg. Sasa hii imeenda double ya hiyo. So maisha imeenda ikibadilika. Which means tukienda mwaka ngine ni kama tena tutakuwa tukienda double.
Lakini economy ni kama sijui ni pande yangu tu, lakini kidogo inatukimbisha kidogo. Kupata job ni tricky kidogo. Ni kama tu unafaa kuwa na connection kiasi ndio upate job. Lakini tuna hope for the best.
So mimi niko na imani Mungu atatusaidia, inchi itarecover. Tena kwanza nishukuru rais wetu kwa sababu tukianza hii mwaka mafuta ilikuwa imepanda sana mpaka maisha ikakuwa ngumu zaidi. Sasa tunaweza toa shukrani, tumwambie venye alipunguza mafuta, tunasema asante. Na tena nikubuse serikali yenye tulichagua. Si tunashangaa sana sisi watu wa bodaboda kwa sababu wakati walikuwa naomba kura walikuwa wamesema serikali itakuwa ya mama mboga na ya mtu wa bodaboda. Na tukiangalia wale walipatiwa kazi kwa serikali, hakuna mtu wa bodaboda alipatiwa kazi, hakuna mama mboga. Sasa tunataka kuuliza rais wetu, je, kwani ulisahau?
Well, as they say, don't watch the clock, do what it does. Keep going as we wrap up the first half of 2024. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Majid Hussain for the Spotlight.
A 59-year-old man has killed a 16-year-old daughter in Kitangela. The man is said to have been involved in a never-ending domestic wrangles with his wife, prompting him to leave the rented family house. However, on Sunday evening, the man came back, found the daughter in the house alone, and stabbed her to death in the chest, abdomen, and hands before he committed suicide by taking poison. Let's take a look.
Kwa hivyo basi kulingana na jinsi mambo yalivyo, kijua ya kwamba wewe kama mke na mume msiweze kuingiza watoto katika vita vyenu, manake zinaletea watoto shida, na ndio maana unapata watoto wengine wanacho kama mayatima.
Right, that story is our mark to go for our first break right here on the Morning Drift. But once we come back, the president has called it, is essentially said that 10,000 shillings will be given to the 40,000 displaced families within Nairobi. In fact, 1 billion shillings has been set aside for the renovation of the schools that have been affected by the ongoing flooding situation in the country. The question that we're asking this morning is Ruto'S Mathare visit. Is it a little too late? And when we look at all the families that have been affected in the country, is this just a tip of the iceberg what the president is doing? Have we managed the current flooding situation in the country? 10.6 billion is going to be approved to this particular move by the government to come in and mitigate the effects of the floods. This morning then, we'll be talking to Sunday Oyolo, who's a policy and governance analyst. Also Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, who's a lawyer, and Masha Kodere, who's a political commentator, as we put these questions into perspective. Also, Nairobi County's woes as well. Is it a little bit too much for one Johnson Sakaja to handle? Once we come back right here on the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles. Can I get the hashtag is the Morning Drift?
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
Tuko hapa maeneo ya Kampi Nyasi, sehemu inaitwa Barwesa, kaunti inajulikana kama Baringo, na hapa ni Blessing Child Care Center. Tulikuja hapa mwaka uliopita, tukaona jinsi watoto wanavolala katika bweni. Tukasema we are gonna be back. Leo tumeleta chakula ya watoto, ile sanitary towels kwa wasichana wetu, lakini pia tumekuja na hundi. Wacha tuone vile wata react tukiwapatia a check of 200,000 Kenya shillings. Hawana habari, njoo cheki.
Nasikia kufurahi sana. Nashukuru Mungu Baba, nashukuru Loto. Sasa natangaza ya kwamba within 10 days tunaishi nyumba mzuri ambaye leo tumechengewa na Loto Kenya. Kongoi. Kongoi.
Yote ni kwa hisani ya Lotto Foundation. All this is possible because you are with us. All this is possible because you are playing Lotto.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki, na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu, wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hawa sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi mazuri.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
If you want to have a proper outlook of the economy, then you have to speak to the wheels and gears of the integral businesses in the country.
And I want to be able to make the youths and everybody coming up in Kenya know that this is here locally.
Men and women in the thick of the burst of markets rising and falling, fighting to make their business decisions stick.
I've always lived in my career that I can never be late.
You need to train by yourself. You need to practice by yourself. Then from there you can compose yourself and give kind of services like this.
On season 2 of the Captain's Arena, we seek the inside of the minds, predict the shift in the markets, get inspiration to start and make sense of it all.
Just watch what everybody else is doing and just make sure you're giving back to the society.
Oof. This is the Captain's Arena.
So the president has finally spoken on the flooding situation in the country. But here's the thing that we haven't really heard from the government, that the current situation now in the country is a national disaster. Not yet. We've had almost 3 weeks of this rainfall in the country, and for the very first time the president visited Mathare, where the residents of the area have been heavily affected by the continuing floods in the country. Now, this is the official announcement that each of the displaced 40,000 people within Nairobi are going to be given 10,000 shillings settled as the government ponders on the next move on this particular situation. When that is happening, the government is also cautioning all those people who built on riparian land in the country that they're coming in for demolition. Indeed, the government has already started that process. We did see exactly what happened in Kiamaiko 2 days ago when the government moved in quick and fast to demolish structures which, according to them, were responsible for the flooding situation in the country because they are blocking waterways. As we speak now, major parts in Runda are completely flooded and residents are essentially seeking for proper places to move to, because the rains have been an example of what we should or should not do in this country. All right, before I introduce the gentleman who are joining us this morning for this particular discussion, let's take a look at this story so that we can pick notes then from what the president said yesterday about the ongoing floods in the country and the government's plan to fight or mitigate the current situation in the country. Let's take a look.
With the effects of flooding being felt across the country, leaving thousands displaced, President William Ruto today visited those affected by floods in Kiamaiko, Mathare, Nairobi County. President William Ruto, while addressing those affected by floods in the area, announced that the government will offer support in paying rent at alternative places, with the government setting aside 1 billion shillings to renovate schools affected by floods.
The 40,000 households, each household, we are going to provide for them 10,000 shillings for alternative settlement until the government comes up with a comprehensive plan on how their lives are going to continue into the future. The government has committed 1 billion shillings to make sure that all schools are reconstructed so that when schools open, all our children will go to class.
The head of state also assured those affected by floods of a full government support in provision of food, announcing that plans are underway to construct at least 5,000 houses under the affordable housing program to accommodate those affected by floods.
Hakuna mwananchi atalala njaa. Hakuna mtoto atalala njaa. Tutalete chakula ya kutosha, kila mwananchi apate chakula mpaka pale kila mtu atakuwa amejipanga na vile mambo yake yanaendesha kawaida. Kupitia hiyo mpango ya affordable housing, hiyo hazina ambayo tumeanzisha sasa hapa Kiamaiko, hawa watu wametoka hapa. Wiki hii tunatangaza kandarasi ya kujenga nyumba 5,000 ambayo itafaidi watu ambao wametoka hapa, wao wataenda kuishi kule. Yenye mnanielewa? Kule Kibira tunaweka nyumba 5,000. Hapa Kasarani Mwiki tunaongeza nyumba 10,000. Wiki hii peke yake tunatangaza ujenzi wa nyumba 20,000 ambayo itasaidia watu wa Nairobi ambao wanaishi katika vitongoji duni kama hii.
As heavy rains continue pounding various parts of the country, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua today led a meeting bringing together members of the Floods Steering Committee, with the DP assuring Kenyans of government support during this difficult time.
The National Disaster Response Steering Committee technical team identified and categorized the most urgent areas requiring expedited support. We call on counties to dig even deeper and facilitate any additional amounts necessary to save the lives and livelihoods of our people. As of this morning, we have directed the National Treasury to give priority while disbursing funds to those counties that are very affected.
Elsewhere, National Assembly Budget Committee Chairperson Ndindi Nyoro has called on government institutions to utilize their funds in helping those affected by floods. Nyoro was speaking during his visit to the victims of Mai flash floods.
All the government's institutions and agencies, wale wanasaidia katika hii maneno ya maafriko na jaga ile imetupata. Please, muendelee mtumie pesa ya serikali hata kama haiko kwa budget. Sheria inawapea ruhusa, you can use up to 10% ya kuangalia wa Kenya wakipata masida kama hii. Na hiyo maneno ikikuja bunge ya ile fedha mumetumia, I want to assure all the government institutions we are going to approve those expenditures as budget committee and as parliament.
Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
That looks comprehensive, but yes, it introduces us to more questions that we as Kenyans and the media have been asking for a long time since the country got into the flooding period. And so before we start asking those questions, it will be important then for me to introduce the gentlemen who are on the set with us this morning. For the sake of familiarity, let me introduce Shako Dede, how are you doing, sir? It's been a minute. Where have you been? I mean, I'm almost telling you Happy New Year.
Yes, I think it's been long since I was on this set.
Does it? Karibu sana. Happy to have you around. Also joining us this morning, we do have Sunday Yolo. Sunday, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, Zimba.
Happy to see you. And also this morning, then finally, we do have Fanya Mambo Kinude. How are you doing, sir?
Very good morning to you.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, let's start like this. Fanya Mambo, we've been waiting for the president to speak. And when the head of state speaks, then we do know the gravity of that particular issue. And so this morning, I want to start like this. I mean, if you look at the poster, we were criticized yesterday for that particular poster. I will tell you on a personal level that when we floated the poster, and Sheila, if you can, then we asked this question, Ruto'S Mathare visit, we asked a little too late. And you can see that poster. I got a lot of criticism for that particular topic. But then it is informed in the sense that over and over again, every other conversation that we've been having around it is that the state has been slow to call this a national disaster. And when they do that, Fanyamabo, we do know what happens, is that the government focuses on the flooding situation in the country and also helping all the counties across the country to mitigate the effects of floods. I want to ask that question again. Is it a little bit too late? Because right now, as we start this conversation, is when the president is asking the members of parliament to approve the 10.6 billion that would be used to mitigate the effects of these floods.
You know, we've spoken to Kenya Kwanza many times. And because they don't hear, maybe one day we should try singing for them. And
Can you remember, do you have a song for them?
You know, like I say, shilingi 10,000 ni pesa nyingi sana, zitanunua mabati, nyundo hata msumari, zitanunua kitanda, godoro hata matresi, sufuria, kijiko, sahani hata sahani, jonge wape. You know, we 10,000.
Sunday.
10,000. Unajua, this government is very interesting. Walisema wameajiri vijana 100,000, wakasema wamejenga nyumba 200,000, waliobebwa na maji watu 40,000, wako wapi hawa watu? Wape nyumba, affordable housing. And you know, vidonge vyao donge, wakimeza wakitema ni shauri yao. Wape. Let me tell you, 40,000 people have been displaced by floods. The Sunday Oyolos of this world have been moving around and saying, we have built 200,000 houses, affordable housing. Sasa siwawekwe kwa affordable housing. The first thing we want Kenya Kwanza administration to do is to take those people from Mathare and put them in affordable housing. They said they have built 200,000 units. We tried asking where are these units, they said they are there. They said they had employed 120,000 Kenyans to build how many houses? 200,000 houses. Now we have only 40,000. Why don't you give them accommodation, then you remain with 160,000 houses to sell? After all, these houses were built on Kenya's land, they were built with Kenya's money, they were built using Kenya's resources. There's nothing from the government. So these are 40,000 Kenyans, they need houses. Why don't you take these 40,000 Kenyans, put them in those 40,000 houses, you still be left with 160,000. But because they know that 200,000 houses was a facade, now they come to Mathare and they start saying, we are going to build 5,000 here, going to build another 5,000 in Kibera. We are going to build. Before you tell us about the 5,000 you're going to build now, please tell us, where are the 200,000? Where are the 200,000 houses that were built using affordable housing? First, with house Kenyans. Number two, 10,000 shillings. I tried thinking about it.
Yes.
Last time I was on this show, I told you, there are two ladies in this country, each of whom is getting about 700 million. The first lady of the Republic of Kenya and the deputy first lady. Now, one woman, 700 million. 40,000 families, 10,000 each, 400 million. So there's one lady in this country who gets 700 million. Nyinyi wa Kenya hata nyinyi sometimes. And then there is 40,000 families that are supposed to divide amongst themselves 400 million. I want you to take your calculator. And if you can work with me, I want you to take 700 million and divide by 12 months to come to about 58 million a month. If you go further and divide it by 30 days, you're the people who did mathematics, you can have that calculation. But I went all the way to 1 hour. And we found that there's somebody who has got some 81,000 shillings at their disposal every single day. And then and Kenyans are being given 10,000 shillings to manage them, he said, for 3 months. Yes. Nyinyi munapatiwa. Let me paint this picture properly. There is a person called the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, and to whom 700 million has been given. Deputy First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, 700 million. And then there's 40,000 of you who are flooded. You've been given 400 million to divide amongst yourselves, 10,000 each. And there's someone who has at their disposal 81,000 shillings every hour. I want you to go and divide that all the way to see how much they have every minute and every second of their lives. Take a calculator, my fellow Kenyans. Usikuwe lazy. Fanya tu hiyo hesabu, 700 million, divide by 365 days, see how much they're getting in a day, then go ahead and even divide to the hour. You see that there's one special Kenyan who gets 80,000 shillings an hour, and then there is you who gets 10,000 shillings to spend in the next 3 months. And then we are in the same country. And mind you, these people you are calling first ladies are using cars provided by us. They are living in State House and the Deputy President's house. Huku hakuna floods. They have insurance. They have food. They have fuel paid by us. They have everything they have not been affected by floods. Kwa hata mosquito haziingii. Those houses are so well fumigated. But a person who is not only poor, who has got no medical cover, who has got no transport allowance, who has got nothing provided for them by government, is being given 10,000. Itoshe babati, itoshe sufuria, itoshe sahani, itoshe kila kitu, na kama kuna uniform ya watoto ilibebwa na floods itoshe, na isitoshe, akimaliza hiyo abomolewe ile nyumba ya mabati ilikuwa imebaki. That is the situation we are in. If that doesn't paint the picture, then I don't know what does. And I'm not hating, I'm just saying the truth. That there is someone with 700 million at their disposal, one individual, who we never voted for, by the way. And then there is 40,000 of you to share 400 million. And you voted. And guess what? Some of those people will still vote again in 2027 for this administration. Ni hayo tu.
Sunday. Is it a little too late?
Thank you for the show, for being here, and thank you for this invite. First of all, we must know that this is not the first time the government has mitigated. It did not start with the president. That's why that topic was wrong, was erroneous. Before the president went, things have been happening. The first lady and the second first lady that Fanyamambo is castigating have been out, and they've distributed it on record. If you are a factual entity, you would have actually said, surely it's true. The president, the first lady and second lady have been out. They've distributed mattresses and food. So it was not starting yesterday. The deputy president himself was in Garissa the other day, weighing out the situation and also made distributions. The county governments that have allocations on emergency and disaster have been mitigating at their levels. The other day we had the governor of Nairobi and the county governance structure in Mathare. It's not the first time that the government has been in Mathare. Things have been happening. The president went there to heighten at that level, but that's why a little too late that doesn't apply. Secondly, we are talking about 700 or whatever. The budgets for the first lady and second lady are annual budget. These are whole annual budget. We are talking about a situation that is being mitigated. My brother chooses not to say that besides the government has said, besides the 10,000, they are also going to take care of the mattresses and the blankets and what have you. The president mentioned that. And he has also allocated money for the primary school, for the schools to be renovated. And that money has been set aside. It's a whole program. And we are talking about a national program that is outlined across counties. Besides that, there are emergencies happening every day. When the situation was in my mind, the government mitigated by being there, by making sure that there are those who are carried away and what have you. Many of them, the government took over the funeral arrangements and everything, and bringing back the family together. Things have been happening. It shouldn't look like. So it started yesterday, yes, when the president visited, and that's why the topic is erroneous. Now, disaster, when it happens, you don't take all your disaster money and put on a disaster one case today. Supposing the cyclone Hidaya ended up happening in Mombasa, and you have already allocated all the money in Mathare, what happens? A government plans for 12 years. Government does not plan for now. Unachukua pesa yote ambayo ulikuwa nayo unaifanya for the situation today. It happens, it plans for the whole year. We haven't finished the year. We don't know what happens in between. Our financial year ends in June. So if there is an allocation in between, and you see now they are going back for supplementaries so that to top up on these other situations. Yes. The delays in schools, massive situation. If you go destruction in schools, you know Fanyamambo is talking about his Dagoretti situation here. We are talking about a national situation where schools are immersed in water across. In Tana River, almost all schools are in water. In Nyando and the areas of Nyanza around along the lake, all schools are immersed in water. In Kakamega, where I come from, some schools have been hit by the wind and what have you, and classes broken. In my own village, we had the other day to put together money to put back a bridge, at least to pass, for people to pass while we are waiting for the county to come in. And by the way, bridges and all those are devolved. It's supposed to be county business. You can say Kenya Kwanza all you can, but you must know that we now have 48 governments. We have a national government and 47 county governments. Some of them are from where Fanyamambo comes from. And they have not done any better. Kisumu, Migori, all of them are in his quarter. Yet we are not being told Kilifi, Tana River itself. They are still calling about the national government. Yet they have allocations for their own. And they haven't done much until the government comes. Yes. If you look at that, all that area, you come to Kilifi, you come to Kwale, all of it are expecting Makweni. When the other day, when the lorry carried off people, yes, still the governor is there and he's saying we could only do this little. We are waiting for the national government. So the national government spreads, and the disaster has been mitigated since the rains began. The quality of doing that is different. Lastly, when you talk about housing, it's Mfanyamambo is lying. He knows that his quota of politics, what they did. They delayed even the beginning of the houses by going to court after court after court. Most of the houses is now that they are starting to pick up. Even when the president was pushing through, they said it was going against the court ruling. So it became very difficult. The delay in budgeting, the delay in legislative framework, the whole legislative framework had to be restarted again. and be done.
Yes.
So we have killed all over a year while fighting the myopism of Fanyamambo and group. So the president now is just starting to settle down to start those houses. Most of the houses are not done. So when you say that people will be taken into houses, the president has said in that speech that you've aired very clearly that wale watu ambao wamedhuriwa, we are giving them 10,000, yeah, and they will need mattresses and they need blankets and all to be moved to safer houses. So they are actually until, and he adds, until while the government is still planning a long-term plan for them, program for them, which is happening. And that's why when we have been saying, when the government says toka mkuru because you are living in the waterbed, and the disaster will be, may be much more harmful. So can you move to high places? His leader goes to the same area and tells people stay put. And the houses are submerged up to here. And you are a whole leader telling people, kaini tu hivo. The rains should find you. All this disaster we are seeing in Runda is because the waterways have been blocked.
Yes. And
most of the time when you look at it, you enter Mathare Valley, area 4, all that area up to Ruai, you will find all the waterbed taken. People living on it. If you start from Kayaba here, I mean even from Kibra, all the way to Kayaba, Mukuru Kayaba, to Ruben, to Kwanjenga, all that is a section of riverbeds. Even in Runda, where people should know better, they were sold to, not by this government, by governments before. In some of the governments that his man was in charge for 10 years, they went and sold riverbeds to people in Runda.
Deputized.
And deputized by a man they put out of power since 2018, and they were all looting and ruling. And now they can now sit pretty to blame him for the repercussions. We have told people that climate change is real.
Yes,
and we have told people disaster is real. And the language that I can hear on this radio, on this TV, is not the language of Kenyans. Kenyans, in the midst of a calamity,
yes,
the bomb attack at the cooperative house and many other calamities, that's when Kenya is defined. Kenyans become one. Kenyans look for solution. You will never know the mattress from an opposition and a mattress from the government. You will never know the blanket from an opposition and the blanket from a government. This is when we usually unite. This is the only first time we are seeing an opposition that is dividing the soul of the nation. This opposition. And that is not the way to go. The way to go is when we are under disaster. That's when Kenya and its leadership unite.
Does it? Sunday, there's some coffee next to you. You can take a sip on it. It's actually just next to you, over the other side. The other side.
Get some water.
Yes.
This is his.
Does that? Oh, it's coming. Let's talk about that as we give Sunday a breather on that as well. I mean, Sunday says that's not a topic that is correct. When we said, is it a little bit too late? We were looking at the time that the government took to floods, a national disaster, to come in and bolster the county government's efforts in mitigating the floods, especially in Nairobi. I will start with Nairobi. We highlighted it. We said the level of flooding within Nairobi, the county government cannot manage by itself. That was just too much that the county government was looking at vis-a-vis the budgets that they have for this kind of things. Is that topic wrong? Just like Sunday thinks this morning.
Thanks, Gary. Let me ask a question first. Have the government declared this flood a national disaster?
Not yet. Not yet.
Must it?
Not yet. Sunday
Not
happened.
yet.
Must it?
Yes.
So, according to the government of Kenya Kwanza today, we're still not having a disaster at the national level. So, according to them, we're still having a very small thing that is supposed to be dealt with by county government disaster response teams. And that is why President will gloss around the whole thing. But then your question was whether it was too late in the day. The answer is obvious and every Kenyan can see. In other countries which we usually compare ourselves to, one life is enough, and that one is enough to call it too late because one life has been lost.
Yes.
But how many lives have we lost up to now that some quarters, part of the country, and the supporters of the current government still feel that it is not too late? So should we lose how many people Sunday? Then you will be comfortable to say, now it is too late. How many people have we lost that makes you think it is not too late? Mm-hmm. Is one Kenyan life too much, or that is not anything to even talk about? Go to the issue around the so-called waterways, waterbeds.
Yes.
Are waterbeds only in Mathare and Mukuru? So if waterbeds are also in Runda, why has the government not moved so quickly to move people out of Runda and those places because they are waterbeds? Why is this waterbed only found in Mathare and Mukuru? I would have loved to see the president also in Mukuru, next to that lady who was telling the people on the news makers that I left my house and I am coming back with nothing in my hands and the house is all demolished. I would have loved to see the president patting that lady in the back that you will be safe, I'm giving you 10,000, with the ops, the photo ops that we saw yesterday. That would have made a lot of sense that this man is actually, I mean, he does things equally.
Yes.
Yeah, the way you can see the photos in Mathare, he is crossing the Mtaro, he is with kids. I would have loved to see him also with that woman in Mukuru.
Yes.
The woman would have been telling him how he left the house. I am back here with nothing. My house has also gone. Everything is, and then he would be saying, don't worry, you have 10,000. Maybe that would have made sense. So, Kiage, to be honest with you, Sunday have said something very critical, that governments plan. So, are these demolitions part of what government of Kenya Kwanza had planned? And this is the time they planned for them? Because that would be very critical. If government plans on budgets, it means money follow functions. So when did the government of Kenya Kwanza plan to demolish the houses of the people in Mukuru, the shanties, Mukuru, Mathare and all that? Was it planned for this particular time in May and April? The Met Department had talked about the rains coming. At some point, we started with El Nino, which was neither here nor there according to the president. They told us El Nino, Mungu nae ni nani. So they consulted their God, and their gods reverted everything. Then El Nino came, the deputy president went to Mombasa, said, we had given the county government money for this thing. Anne Waiguru, the chair of Council of Governors, came out with the rest of governors, said, we didn't see any money. Uliweka kwa kiti gani? Then they wakazima hiyo moto about whether they had given money or not. Then they said their God had them, and so El Nino was not there. So it was like that. And then we came to this.
Yes.
And the Met Department spoke again, and if the government plans, then we should have seen Matingatinga in Mukuru removing those people at that time,
And then by now, as we speak, those people would have been somewhere on the upper side. The government usually have some hills hidden. So they keep telling people, move to the higher grounds. So we would have known where the higher grounds are by now, because if we have relatives there, they would have called us by now and said, I am actually on the higher ground. The higher ground is somewhere near State House, or we have been. This is what we would have seen if a government really plans. But the one we are seeing, if this is what you call planning, Sunday, where the children are told 2 days to opening that schools are going to open as usual, then 1 hour after into the day, the schools are not opening. Then people say, I mean, this is so much, because children had already gone to school. The next day at 3 p.m., the Gazette noticed, those who are in school, just stay. We don't know whether teachers were already also in school with them or they are staying alone. Then we see some PR of, oh, we are paying transport for those who have been messed up midway. Then 1 week later, the president suspended it indefinitely. So remember, the ones who are in school, there was a notice by 3 p.m. that they should stay. I think they are still in school. But now, we don't know the further notice. So if that is what somebody would sit down and call planning, then we are in a mess as a country.
Sunday, hopefully you're taking notes. I will be coming back to you on that particular one. Because it's Fanyamambo's time. So would you take 45 seconds?
Yes,
45 seconds. Yes.
My brother does not want to take into cognizance the fact that actually the government had given notices, not this government, the government of Uhuru Kenyatta had given long notices to the people in Mukuru to move out. They have dilly-dallied, they have not come out. Sometimes in Kenya, we have to be Thomases. People have to see the disaster to move out. The notices have been on.
Yes.
You remember the times when Ruben Ndolo, the former MP for Makadara, say it was in Lunga after the disaster. And he said, nilikuwa nasema weka taya wapite. That is the time, from that time. In fact, it was in Kibaki's time. The government gave notice and that people should move off the riverside and move off those areas because they were spared for waterways. Our people have not just moved out.
Yes.
And that's number one. Number two, there is no excuse. When you talk about planning, there's no excuse for any government, including the county governments, to say that they had not had money to aid their people. There's never that excuse because all governments are responsible to their people.
Does that?
Yeah. So as much as the national government is responsible, county governments too take responsibility. And that's why I want him to hear my brother talking about what has Anyang' Nyong'o done differently.
But on that basis alone, just if I cross over to Fanyamamba as well, on that basis alone is questioning the planning. And remember, Sunday, we said,
planning at what level?
Is it a little bit too late? Because if the Met Department had spoken, did you have to wait for that particular situation for you to go in and demolish? Because rightly so, 10,000 shillings exactly for families is not going to be enough. That these families' livelihoods have been moved away from where they used to. So why couldn't you do it a bit early before the onset
let me tell you, Simba, the government gave notice and said that people must move from those riparian areas. In fact, in Mukuru, there was a massive demolition during Uhuru's time. Trying to mitigate and move.
Yes.
Yet people did not take it lightly. The same case happened in Ngomongo and Soweto area, where also again during Uhuru Kenyatta's time, people were moved, and yet Kenyans have to cry about a situation. What I want to dissuade us from is apportioning blame. Let's go into solution. In fact, this set here, we would have done a lot of service.
Yes.
by now delving into the issues of climate change and the dangers thereof, and communicate to our people that if you live in a valley area on a waterway, please move.
Sunday, but
like for example, what he's talking about Runda. How can you go assist Runda? We know that in the situation that like in Runda, if you have gone to put up a house of 60 million and bought a land of over 30 million, and yet you have capacity to even get the topographers to look at the topology of the area before you settle in. You are not I wouldn't even call the Runda people a priority to government. Government goes to people who are in dire need, who are actually people who had problems. Like wewe mwenyewe umeenda pale ukahonga maplanners, you bought in the valley. That is a different. Let's encourage our governments to go to where people of less wadogo wako and need help, and that's what we are going to do even now. Those who are in those areas like Runda and they bought willingly, they had capacity to know the topology of the area, they did not take into cognizance what happened. We need to start telling them that climate change is real.
And Sunday, I do agree with you that at the end of the day, we are not abortioning claim on this particular conversation. We're just looking at government response. That up to this point, as we're speaking today, Sunday, we do know the modalities of declaring a national disaster. We, as a country, has not declared this as a national disaster.
Tanzania has not. In fact, Tanzania have lost up to yesterday.
No
They've
point.
Lost over 55.
There's no point. There's no point. There's no point. There's no point of looking.
And by the way, Hidayah,
yes,
hit parts of that.
That's it, Sunday. Would you always want to look at what your neighbors are doing as opposed to what your government is doing?
Yes, we do. We
don't have to.
We don't reinvent the wheel.
Sunday,
these things we live in the same situation.
Completely fine. Fanya mambo. Just on that particular basis, Sunday. And by the way, you and I sat here when you were told do not compare us to our neighbors.
No,
we were completely different.
Who told me? He's not a reference.
I'll remind you here. Here's
the
situation that we're talking about government response in this particular matter. So we're not really going to look at abortion in claim, but we're saying, well, how have they responded? Currently, as it is, Sunday, we've been told that we've lost 228 people in the country, plus many of them missing. I was still waiting for those comprehensive reports. In the way that we've responded, is it ever the way that we need to respond, Fanyamambo? And why haven't we up to now declared this a national disaster?
You see, number one, on the day that this flooding hit this country the worst, I remember that Friday morning when there was a young boy on a rooftop in Mathare. UDA was using available helicopters to fly ballot material. And those videos are all over. And this ballot material was being flown to schools that are flooded. It was so important for them to have grassroots elections. You are flying over houses where people are sitting on rooftops. There is no chopper available to remove. That boy was removed by people who came with boats, and they had to go all the way to Uhuru Park to look for boats to go and remove him from the roof. Because available choppers were carrying UDA ballot material. It goes to tell you how insensitive the government is. So if, you know, sometimes we want to speak as Kenyans, but we get annoyed. It is the same government, because I remember that time when those Kenyans were doing it, and I remember Eric Omondi is one of them, when people were going to help people who were on rooftops.
Yes.
That time the police was nowhere, NYS was nowhere, the army was nowhere. And guess what? If we had been called to take 1,000 men to Haiti, we would have had them. There has been that campaign, but there was no 1,000. They were manning UDA elections. By the way, you should have gone to UDA house here on Gong Road. It's not very far, and seen the contingent of policemen that had been deployed just to protect ballots of somebody who is vying for community small representatives of Sijui. Some people are getting 45 votes here. The whole of Dagoretti people have queued and voted for you. You are the head of SMEs in Dagoretti, 45 votes. And people are dying of floods. I think the first thing that a sensitive government should have done is cancel those elections and make those choppers available for people who were stuck on rooftops. Then we would have said that now truly we feel as Kenyans we have a responsible government. The chairman of KRA has become the returning officer for UDA. Now, his focus should have been on trying to help us get money as a country to mitigate the disaster. But I think he's trying to get money for UDA to run its elections. That's why he's the returning officer. And the reason we talk about it and people think we are just being hateful and spiteful and everything is because of this. When you're chairman KRA, you're given a lot of resources, including a big government vehicle and so on and so forth. So when you are attending party elections,
yes,
will you say that today, because I don't want to use government resources to do what is a party affair, I'm going to use my wife's car and not the official government car? So what is happening now, public resources are going into doing things that they're not supposed to do. We've lost more than 220 Kenyans. Has the flag been flown half-mast? Some Kenyan lives are more valuable than others. I have profound respect for the general we lost. But we mourned him for 3 days. We flew a flag half-mast. I think to this administration, there are lives that are worthy of more national mourning than others. And that's why we lose one general whom I have a lot of respect for and a lot of profound respect for what, if you read his career achievement.
Yes.
We get 3 days to mourn him. We fly flags half-mast. 220 poor of you die. It's not an issue. Right now they're saying about 70 people are missing. Boss, let me tell you, if the child of a senior politician in this country was missing, it would have been very big news. A lot of helicopters would have been sent. Just think of those senior politicians at the top 7 or 8 there, and one of their children is said that they were taken away by a car. What do you think would be happening in this country right now? The choppers would be up in the air searching for this one life because they think it's important. For me right now, I'm more worried because there's someone somewhere struggling. They're probably about to breathe their last, but we are not concerned about looking for them.
Yes.
I'm not worried about the 220 that are dead. May their souls rest in peace. We mourn with the family, we condole with them. What I'm worried about is that out of these 70 whose fate is unknown, there is one who is probably struggling somewhere in mud or something is going on. And we are not seeing that responsiveness from the army, from NYS, from, the police. We are not seeing a deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know whether you've seen how the governments work. When a disaster happens, their focus is on, are there lives we can save first? So these 70 people should have been a concern. We should be knowing their names. Their photos should be flying all over. We should be searching for them like there is gold left somewhere. But what are we doing? Promising people we are going to start building 5,000 houses here, 5,000 houses here. In this point in time, I think out of the 70, probably there are some 15 somewhere who are stuck in some sort of situation. But we are not looking for them. The DCI is not trying to trace their phones and saying this phone is ringing here or it last went off here. We've not had such things. So I'm worried for the 70 that probably are still alive or about to die, or maybe they died last night and they would have been found the day before. There is no concerted effort for that. And that is why I'm calling upon us, because we want to be Kenyans, we want to be seen to be helping. Let me tell you, we went to Solai with a few friends and I got surprised. Do you know Kenyans came from everywhere? People drove there. People went to this Nakuru place, this Maimahiu, where
Yes.
And we found so many cars. We had gone with two Mheshimiwas, I don't want to mention. We had gone there with a few mattresses. Personally, I could only afford a few ungas. I carried everybody. But we got there and we were surprised at the love of Kenyans. People came, people gave, people donated. Those people, at least for now, even before government got there, Kenyans out of their own volition had done a lot.
Yes.
And I personally also did the little that I could.
Yes.
But when you hear me criticizing government, it's because the leadership they're providing is one thing.
Elijah,
and also as you try to respond to that as well, I want to give you also an opportunity. What Sunday says, you can't question planning per se, and in this particular disaster that we're going through, and I'm calling it a disaster, and I don't know what informs me to call it that, because the government has not called it, is that you got to look at how our neighbors are also responding to it. Sunday says even Tanzania, they've not declared it a national disaster, they're also losing lives over that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me bring an angle here.
Yes.
Kiage, the truth is the government of Kenya has not responded to the disaster that we are having as a country. The people who have responded to the disaster are Kenyans. It may interest you to know, I am chairing an umbrella body, a consortium of member organizations called VIO Society Kenya, Volunteer Involving Organization Society Kenya. This is bringing Red Cross, UN volunteers, VSO, and many other volunteer organizations.
Yes.
It is volunteers who have responded to the disaster that have struck Kenya, not the government of Kenya. Because
would it be challenged, because we've seen what the government has also been doing on the
let me tell you.
Yes.
Let me tell you. Sunday, wait.
Yes.
The Red Cross itself.
Sunday, wait.
Red Cross has he is not informed that Red Cross has an allocation.
Let me tell you. Sunday, wait.
He doesn't know that.
Wait, I know that very well.
UN, Kenyan government makes contribution into the UN annually. Part of what they are doing response is a UN responsibility to member states.
Relax.
Let me explain on it. Let me explain on it.
Yes. You know this behavior of Sunday and the entire Kenya Kwanza government is like this gentleman who think he can throw money on every problem and it will be solved. If you remove your money that you have given to Kenya Red Cross, or let's say you have given Kenya Red Cross a lot of money. Kenya as a member state of the UN have given the UN a lot of money. But how is that money going to work without volunteers on the ground? How much do you think that money has paid volunteers? Do you think volunteers are paid? And do you think your money is equivalent to the work they are doing? The other day, in Cumberland, when that lorry was going down with people. Yes. How much money can we pay Sunday to go into that water to rescue those people if he was a volunteer? Don't joke with this, because volunteers are not doing this for money. If they were to do this for money, they would be paid more than we pay our soldiers in this country. They would be paid more than we pay our police in this country. Have you seen NYS anywhere? They are the ones who feed, sleep, and eat in government facility every day. But do they respond to such kind of, do they make such kind of responses? If Kenyans out here have distress, who do they call? They call Kenya Red Cross. And do volunteers say, pay me first before I go into that thing? They go with all their heart, they rescue what they can rescue, they do their best, and then we talk about everything else later. So the money that government allocates to Kenya Red Cross is not payment for volunteers. It is basically money to facilitate other things like logistics here and there. But volunteers do this from their heart because they love Kenya and they love Kenyans. So the person who has responded most, let me ask you, if anything happens right now in my county of Migori as a disaster, do you think the volunteers, let's say Kenya Red Cross and other volunteers organized on the ground, would wait until there is a call from Secretary General Kenya Red Cross headquarters for them to respond? They will respond whether there is a call or no call. It will only be reported that this happened and the volunteers were there on time to rescue and save. When that lorry went down, it went with 11 people. In 10 minutes, 7 people were already rescued by the Kenya Red Cross volunteers in that water. They were searching for the other ones. Do you think they waited until the Kenya Red Cross boss at the headquarters called them to say, government has given us money, now go into the water? Sunday, what are you even thinking? when you're talking about.
I needed
yes, yes. Give him a right of response.
I mean, it's
yes,
second to correct
yes,
that.
yes.
Correct that impression.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where he is now humping on a different thing. What he said initially is that the government has been nowhere in sight.
Yes.
You get no. Just listen. The government has been nowhere in sight, and Red Cross and UN have been doing. And his organization brings together UN and Red Cross. The work that volunteers do, which I have been a volunteer myself and have done, is invaluable. Volunteers in their working everywhere, all over the country. Actually, that's what I said.
Yes,
Kenyans are known with their Kenyanness in the time of disaster.
Yes.
That's what Fanyamambo is saying. He went with his 4, 5, 10 mattresses. He found another crowd of Kenyans uninvited with their also donations. That is Kenyan. He's talking about volunteers being there before. By the way, that's what we are. That is Kenyanness. In fact, what people are surprised, those who haven't been out there, if you go out of the country, people wonder about Kenya, because yesterday we were fighting fiercely. And then the following day, you hear there was a flood. The president was there. The leader of opposition was there. Martha Karua was there. People wonder, what kind of people are you in this country? Because that doesn't happen every day in all these other neighborhoods.
Yes.
That is our Kenyanness. We are strong we are united in disaster. Now, but the point I was making is that you can't single out and say government was missing.
Sunday, are you
government?
Sunday,
let me make that point.
And I don't want to cut you. Sunday, and I don't want to cut you. Just for the sake of this conversation, are you concerned that you're calling this a disaster when your government hasn't called it a disaster?
No, I'm saying in a disaster situation.
Is this a disaster too?
No, it hasn't gotten there. If the government has all the machinery of measurement to know when to call it disaster.
Sunday,
for example,
40,000 families have been displaced.
Displaced what? Do you know this situation was from September 2021?
Yes.
The Mukuru situation was actually declared by government. People must move, and they attempted to move.
Yes, and Sunday
in September 2021.
And Sunday, let me draw for you another instance where the government has gone in and declared it a national disaster. If you do remember during the Tana River clashes, I mean, we did lose 228 Kenyans during those clashes, but indeed the government moved in quick and declared curfews and called it a disaster for the country during that period. So if indeed we did lose 228 people, why haven't they come out to declare
what
this
I'm
a national
saying?
disaster?
You cannot, just the same way you are comparing apples and oranges.
Yes.
In situations like, for example, in Lamu and Tana River, where conflict, human conflict, is beyond redemption, because the way you look at it, it is escalating into much more harm and all.
Yes.
There is a way when you declare that a curfew, then you are able, and I've been in Lamu, I worked in Lamu for over 3 years. When they declare that, you are able then to separate the bad people from the good. You are able to control, like for example, the movement of vehicles at night. You are able then to do it. It is a lot. It is a security situation. This also is a national security situation. That's why the cabinet has met last week alone 3 times over this situation. But the government, the government is not saying it is beyond our capacity.
But declaring
and
national disaster.
Why must it?
Are you afraid, Sunday? Is the government afraid? And we do know. And I started.
Simba.
And Sunday, just indulge as well on the set today. And I started by saying that we do know the modalities of declaring a situation a national disaster. Because at the point you declare a national disaster, then it is upon you to give direction and declare the resources that is going to go in and mitigate the situation. Is that what the government is afraid
must it do? For example, by the way, now you just talked that we know the modalities of declaring a national disaster. One of the modality is by through a member's private motion in the House.
Does it?
We have a membership of 290. almost a quarter of it towards a half is opposition. Or is there any of the members who has declared from Migori, from Fanyamambo's quarter, who has gone to the parliament to move a motion of declaring international disaster? If the government hasn't done, there is the opposition. There is the opposition leadership. Is there any that has gone? You have just heard Nani making noise in Mombasa, Eugene and Kalonzo Musyoka, about disaster. They have members of parliament. DAP has members of parliament in the house.
Yes.
Wiper has.
Yes.
When Linturi and the fertilizer was a problem, the member of parliament for DAP has sponsored a motion which is going on, and by the way, backed by almost across the aisle. Why haven't we seen a member of parliament from any other? Because the intelligence has not given that kind of information that we are there yet. We have not exhausted the national resources that can elevate this situation. We haven't. We haven't gotten there. When we get there, it shall be apparent.
Pretty much. Guess what, Fanyamamba, would like us to go for a tiny bit.
Before the
yes,
break,
yes. 10 seconds if you can. 10 seconds.
All I would like to say is this. I think where he's failing, he's saying cabinet has met 3 times. I wish President did not meet cabinet, because they have nothing to offer.
Why?
Because you know the cabinet, the kind of cabinet that this country has, and you even know what Raila Odinga said about this cabinet. The president himself has told his own cabinet that he knows what happens in their ministries more than they know themselves. So he knows the kind of cabinet he's meeting. If I was president, I would have asked, give me the best people from the meteorological department, give me the best people from Red Cross, give me people who know how to manage a disaster. But when you sit and meet Linturi, when you sit and meet Aisha Jumwa, when you sit and meet the likes of the
now,
people we
Simba,
have in
that
this
is
cabinet.
not the subject.
No,
we
when
are
you
now discussing
no, we are saying
Sunday, we have 8 seconds. We've got 8 seconds.
We are talking about floods.
Sunday, you allow it. Sunday, you allow it because Sunday, you allow it because the president, because the president has.
Let's go there then.
It's all right. Sunday, it's all right. Sunday, it's all right.
And the cabinet is comparatively.
Let's
go back to
Sunday.
history.
Sunday's all right. You allow it because the president actually met the cabinet.
We are talking about floods.
But the cabinet has met the president.
You get dissuaded very
No,
easily.
it's not about situation, Sunday.
You are talking about characters,
but the
and he's
president,
mentioning names.
That's it. But the president.
Why are we here now to discuss Juma?
That's it. Who's that? But
we are discussing Juma.
You have a right to do that.
No,
Sunday.
it is not. We are discussing floods and the mitigation that the
and the president. Yes, Sunday, and the president has met the cabinet.
Don't allow that.
Yeah, you're the one who said
you get carried away.
Sunday, you're the one who said he's met them 3 times, isn't it?
Cabinet.
Does that? Guess
but
what?
not
guess
their character.
Guess what, Fanyamambo? He's a yes.
And I don't
character.
10 seconds, Fanyamambo. Yes.
It's not got anything to do with character.
You don't discuss character.
You don't come and tell your cabinet and then you meet them to advise you.
Do we have room for improvement?
Yes.
Since when he said until today, since when he said until today, haven't they improved? He was number 10 one time, and one time he became number 1.
Yes, well, we take a tiny breather right here on the morning brief. Once we come back, we're going to listen to what Raila Odinga has said about the government's response to the floods in the country. In fact, an issue that has got him in a hot soup this morning. Because if you look at the Daily Nation, they're saying, should he stop? Because we do know the government is actually also supporting him for his AU job. And also, top on that, Sakaja is a man on fire. We'll be telling you why. Majority of the people in areas that are supposed to be integral in managing the disaster in Nairobi are not qualified for the job. Gentlemen, I will tell you, some of them in the fire team are on theology courses. Once we come back right here on The Morning Lift.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
Tuko hapa Kaptara, tunataka kusema asante sana Loto Foundation kwa mambo mazuri ambayo wameweza kutufanyia leo. Wakaaji wa hapa Kaptara, wakaaji wa hapa Salawa, wakaaji wa hapa Mujukuo, mpaka wakaaji wote ambao wanatoka hapa Baringo County.
Naambia Loto Foundation asante kwa kazi nzuri wanayofanya. Mungu awabariki.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the Lotto Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki, na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hawa sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi mama.
Mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookup TV. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Guess what, Sheila, if you can, take us to the Daily Nation this morning, because it's quite related to the story we're going to run for you this morning. And if you are ready, then you can inform me so that we can get to look at that particular headline together. Good. There it is Raila Amolo Odinga under fire. And the sign is between a rock and a hard place. That indeed there are gaping holes in what the government is doing, its response to the flood situation in the country. But then if Raila Amolo Odinga attacks the government on it, then it sort of removes him from the conversation of getting supported for the top AU job that is coming up soon rather than later. Actually, if you're counting it, it's just a couple of 6 months to that now, because in February then we should be knowing whether he's going to get the job or not. And we've been knowing that President Dr. William Ruto, PhD, has been the top campaigner for one Raila Amolo Odinga, that every other time that he gets an opportunity to move out of the country, then those conversations are top on that. That has been confirmed by the Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary who is Musalia Mudavadi. In fact, warning members of the Kenya Kwanza side and the ODM side, or the Azimio side, should I say, to not talk about Raila Amolo Odinga in any other light, because that then affects his chances for the top job. Raila Amolo Odinga is not holding back though. Let's take a look at this one, where he's hitting the government on the response to the flooding situation in the country.
Lakini hao watu walikuwa wajapanga mpango. Walijua hiyo mvua itaendelea kunyesha, maji itakuwa mengi zaidi, mito zitajaa. Lakini hakuna hatua ambao walichukua ya kidharura. Sasa mnaambiwa kwamba mpandeni mahali ambayo iko juu. Pandeni mlimani. Mlima iko wapi? Mlima iko wapi? Kuna yale mabwawa. Ukichukua kule inaitwa Seven Forks. Kuna pale Masinga Dam. Kuna Kamburu Dam. Kuna Gitaru Dam. Kuna Kindaruma Dam. Kuna Kiambere Dam. Ni tano zote. Na zote zimejaa. Na hizo damu inatakana zitengeneze stima. Wangejua mapema ya kwamba maji inakuja, funguliweni madamu, maji endelee ingie baharini. Lakini haya Zakayo hawajui haya maneno. Wanalala tu. Wanalala tu.
Tumekuja shule sasa ni disaster. Health ni disaster. Mafuriko disaster. Madaktari disaster. Mambo yote ambayo ameguza yote ni disaster. Nyinyi mukae tayari. Lazima tujiondolee hili janga. Hamna lingine. Tuombe Mwenyezi Mungu atupe nafasi ya kuishi, tuondoe hili janga kati yetu.
Sasa tunaomba Mwenyezi Mungu, watu wetu wako Mombasa, inasemekana kuna cyclone inatoka bara Hindi na kuna upepo mkubwa zaidi wakati huu kwa upande wa Mombasa. Hatutaki tusikie hakuna jambo ambalo wamefanya kusaidia watu ambao pengine wanaweza kuaradhika na kufanya kuwa na shida kwa sababu ya janga hili. Kumbukeni, hawa jamaa waliita mkutano wa Afrika nzima, wakazungumza hapa Nairobi juu ya climate change. Wiki moja kabla ya mkutano alikuwa amesema wamepeana lessons yote, miti katwe, na huko anasema tupande miti. Wakafungua kila mtu akitaka kuharibu msitu ako na leseni.
That's it. So the Daily Nation got to spot on then by saying, well, it's been a hard place. It's been a rock at a hard place. At this point, I'd like to recognize that Fanyamambo is actually came to the show this morning. He was supposed to do 1 hour and then leave for a burial. At this particular point, he left us essentially one more break. But we still do have Sunday and Dada right here with us. Here's the thing. On that particular one, Raila Amolo Odinga is calling it, if you close your eyes on the rest of the statement that he's saying, is actually saying, well, they knew very well that these floods were coming. But then that concerted effort from the national government and concerned authorities was not felt prior to this flooding situation. And you called it right, that if you're saying that there was some sort of planning in it, then we should have seen it prior to the onset of the rains in the country. And on that point, it was validated by the crowds that were listening to him. Is that what Sunday didn't understand in your sentiments, right there?
Let me say this, Kiage.
Yes.
The 3 cabinet meetings we are talking about right now, the meetings we are seeing the Deputy President holding with the Disaster Response Committee and all that,
yes,
should have been done much earlier, because the Met Department had told us the rains are coming. It is going to be beyond the normal rains. We are going to have floods. Just like now they are talking about the drought coming.
Yes.
So any better planning or any leadership that is geared towards taking a country somewhere needs to use what I call systems thinking. Systems thinking is trying to deal with the things that causes what we see. The things that causes what we see. So right now, the systems thinking would dictate that the cabinet is talking about the drought that is coming after this. And before we see the drought, what is causing that drought is what we are supposed to deal with. Or whatever result we will find when droughts come, we are able to know this is how we are going to deal with every situation around that.
Yes.
So we should have seen more of these meetings a bit earlier, including, because Sunday puts it correctly, if the government that is gone, which was led by Uhuru Kenyatta, had foresaw things like this and gave an order that people should leave those riparian lands and the waterways,
yes,
the subsequent government, which is now Kenya Kwanza, should have just done a simple task: implement the order that was standing there by the other government. If they realized that the other government realized this is a waterway and said people should leave, we should have seen them removing people before the rains. So by that, we would have reduced by a lot the number of deaths that could be seen, and also the wealth or the properties that would be lost. If that is called mitigation. It means we are planning ahead. If we foresee the danger, we look at the extent, and then we mitigate to get the minimum as much as possible. If anybody have to die, we get the minimum numbers. If any property has to be lost, we lose the minimum.
Yes.
But here, it seems like nothing of such were done. So we are responding to the destructions that are already happening. So we didn't keep ourselves out of the way of destruction.
Yes.
Then come to Honorable Raila Odinga. I think we need to demystify this thing. The gentleman who Raila is supposed to succeed in the AU competed with a Kenyan, and that was Amina. By that time, William and Uhuru were best of friends. Same tie, same suit, same coat, same everything. And they all campaigned for Amina. And Amina did not speak against any government. But did Amina become the AUC chair? No. So don't blackmail us with this, oh, William Ruto is your chief campaigner. Was William Ruto not deputy chief campaigner with another chief campaigner? And they failed with Amina. So what are you even telling us? Don't blackmail Raila Odinga with this AUC thing. You did it, it didn't work with Amina, who was your best. So right now, what we need to do is, because the same people in Kenya Kwanza will go on the podium and tell you how Raila does not love Kenyans. He sold Kenyans to die ili tu apate the AU chair, because that is what everybody else will say again. Baba was here, we were going through all these troubles, he didn't speak because he wanted the AU chair, this man loves himself. That would be the narrative. So because he is standing right for Kenyans and saying what is wrong and calling out government, now the people on the side of government think they should use that to blackmail him. After all, if the president of Ghana think Raila has what it takes to take this African continent to the next level, is that linked to how many Kenyans should first die without Raila speaking so that the guy can vote Raila? It is the presidents who are going to vote. Ruto can remove his vote, but there are still other more than 50 countries that are supposed to vote. But if Ruto loves Raila that much and votes, and the other countries do not vote, does Raila become the AUC chair? He doesn't. So it is about his ability to fit the AUC chairmanship.
Yes.
Because Africa as a continent have a dream. And does Raila believe in that dream? Does he have what it takes to achieve that dream for Africa together? If yes, then how is that linked to not saying anything that he feels is going wrong simply because he wants that? Where will be Kenya for Raila or his people if all the people die on the floods and then he becomes the AUC chair, coming back home to nothing because everything went with the floods simply because he wanted to be AUC chair?
Yes.
I mean, it won't work like that. So Raila will speak, and Ruto will still go ahead and campaign for him, because he is also not going there as an individual. It is a position that Kenya will be proud of and say, Kenya is holding this position in Africa right now.
That's it. Sunday, on that particular one, is just talking about the concerted efforts for the government to make the country ready for this particular floods. And number two, on Raila Amolo Odinga's attack on the government, should he hold back, Sunday, knowing very well that, well, the same man you're attacking is the one who's sponsoring your AUC bid?
You know, there is a saying in English that says, you cut the nose to spite the face. We know that Raila's candidature.
Yes.
The government of Kenya, led by William Ruto,
yes,
made it a point and declaration that this is our candidate. Actually, at that point, we all know that in the grapevine, even Uhuru had interest in that seat. And we know even in the region, Kikwete in Tanzania and all that, had those interests. The government of Kenya declared that this is our candidate, and the president has taken his time to go out to ensure that he rallies the rest of the continent. You cannot compare the work that Ruto is doing with the work that Uhuru did for Amina.
Yes.
No. This has gone beyond. He has convened meetings. He has done diplomacy shuttles himself, and that everybody should give it to him.
Yes.
And for me, I know for sure the voting will be in February. So in between, Raila Amolo Odinga is still the leader of opposition. So he should be given opportunity to talk and say whatever he wants to say. The government of Kenya has determined. The president was in Zimbabwe last week, and in a whole sitting of presidents, he did not lose time to tell them, I have a candidate. He convened, as he landed here, he was convening the meeting on climate change here. In that meeting, he also took opportunity. A man who even takes you to a brother to go and seduce for a girl in the neighborhood, and even bends so low to even go and graze the cows with Museveni so that you can be able to be made. Surely let's not belittle that. Mm-hmm. What I know is I and already know that I have worked with Raila before. And I know Raila. I worked in his office at Oginga Odinga Foundation. Raila does not talk when nothing is like the saying, a frog does not jump during the day if it's not being chased. Raila hasn't been talking this way for almost 6 or so over months since we started the debate. If Raila spoke the other day, and then he hasn't spoken again in the same tone again, there was a message he was passing. Either his interest is in danger somewhere, Not maybe the AU alone. It could be elsewhere. Business is a businessman. Import, maybe his container is on the sea. Something. If you hear Raila speak, there is something that is in danger. And in fact, what I can tell you, you must remember a few days before, there had been some talk at the St. Stephen's Church in Makadara, where Atuoli had insinuated that we have given Raila a job and the next big person is Kalonzo Musyoka. You remember that talk? That is the thing that had to be cancelled. That, hey guys, don't forget, I'm still around. You remember when immediately we started talking about him going to AU, there was already a discussion about his succession. Will it be Joho? Will it be Oparanya? Will it be Wandai? Will it be Mbadi? Immediately he came back and he said, I don't want to hear that talk. I'm still here. Why? Because you will take a bulldozer to get Raila from his leadership position.
Yes.
And for me, whatever he says right now, I know my president is very magnanimous and he's very resolute. Whatever he has decided to do, he will do as a national duty. And he will support Raila to the end, because it is the right thing to do. And that's why you had the Foreign Affairs Minister, who has been tasked to make sure that it happens. He told them, guys, this story is not good, because we are still we're campaigning in the region, in all of Africa. There are people who still have misgivings about Raila, whether he will have time. In fact, those who followed him when he was infrastructure director in the region, they saw that the guy was immersed too much in Kenyan politics, that he forgot the infrastructure docket. That is the fear. That will he again leave his duty as AUC chair and be immersed in local politics? So many are still having those misgivings. We are using a lot of time to convince them that surely this guy has reformed, he's focused, this is where he's going. So, but for now, yes, until February next year, he's still the opposition leader. Now, I just something a bit about climate change, and that's where I wanted. I was hoping when I was coming in the morning, this discussion will be headed, because we have, after you've said a little too late. So what? What follows? This is a channel that is talking to Kenyans and to the world. We need to start saying, even after you've said what you've said, Simba, or Dede, what you've said, then what are we telling Kenyans? To continue staying put in Mkuru, in the waterbeds? Do we tell them all over the country, people, to continue buying in Runda on riverbeds, in the waterways? We must bring out a message that says climate change is real. Right now, some of the effects are not Kenyan born. Deep in the Arctic and the Atlantic Sea, things are happening. In the Greenland, we are seeing the whole ice melting. Where is that water going? Even the forces of Cyclone Hidaya and others is because of the friction that is happening underneath. Because now these warm things are going to meet very cold things down there. That is the explosion. And that's why we are going to have a lot of this. And Kenyans need to be told, not only here. The other day we had Baringo, where a whole church, pastor's children, and on the boat capsized. Several years ago, we had people living along Lake Naivasha, Lake Nakuru, and the lakes around there, Bogoria. The situation went where land was actually being immersed back into water. We need to start telling people that this reaction, climatic reactions, are going to be even more dire. And if you are in the waterway, it's no longer a story. Yeah, people need to start moving, like in Muranga the other day. You wake up in the morning and the whole earth has just receded and buried people underneath. We need to start now communicating also. That helps. Instead of being reactive, even we blame the government for being reactive. The media houses, we become more reactive ourselves. So we are talking about the stories of the past, and we don't forecast the future.
Pretty much. Here's the thing: as we get close to barring this conversation for government response on the flooding situation in the country, Ashaka, you can respond to this also guided by what Sunday said this morning, because Sunday is concerned that yes, say whatever it is you're going to say, but the truth has to come out in this particular conversation. But isn't the questions that we got in the studio upon the demolitions that followed at Mukuru? They said, hold on, but this is not the only region that the government needs to move in fast during this period and demolish. They said that this would have been the opportune moment for the government to state clear its intention to guard its waterways in the country. Case in point, that major parts in Runda are flooded currently as we speak, and it turned out that that particular region is majorly the waterway. That even as we say, do not blame the government, there's a two-sided story to this. That indeed, where the government has moved in fast to state its point, to make itself clear, either you gotta move, it's in Mukuru. That there's no second thought about it.
Yes.
But there are other places that are quite open to majority of Kenyans that is actually waterways, and they are also flooded currently as we speak. No yet.
Let me say this, Kiage. What we need to do, if you ask me if I was the advisor to this government and William Ruto as the president, there's a way people perceive things, and it will definitely go that route when you move to go and demolish the structures in Mukuru, Mathare, Kibera, Korogocho, because you want to create waterways. Yes, it looks good, but it will be seen like wale ni wanyonge. That's why it is easy for you to make that decision. If we know there are big mansions in Runda, Lavington, Kileleshwa, which are on waterways, those are the ones the government need to bite the nail and go and demolish. In places like Korogocho, Mathare and all that, map out as a government, this from here to here are the houses on waterways. So these families, we are moving them into the already constructed affordable housing so that they can leave the waterways. But the people in Runda, Lavington, Kileleshwa, we know they are people with means. We are going to demolish, because if you demolish those houses, it's not like they are going to sleep outside in a tent. They have means. You will realize they have even other houses better than this. So that's what we want to see. Let's see a government that while you do the right thing, there is also that empathy and sympathy that is seen in you. So the people of Korogocho, we are moving these families because this is waterways. But because we know that you don't have other means, you don't have any other alternative, the government has put an alternative for you here. So you are moved here, and we are creating waterways. But the people of Runda, you can move yourself because we know you have the means and capabilities of moving. We are creating waterways there. But Kiage, how else would Kenyans look at it when it is the time that people have been flooded is the same time that you are demolishing their houses, and they are not people of means? It would have been possible if all this were done earlier. Because if, for example, we are talking about the drought is coming, isn't it right now, immediately after this rain, that we start planning for irrigation, putting together all the dams, putting the water together, how the irrigation will happen? Because when the drought comes, it will find us with all the infrastructure ready to irrigate our land and continue harvesting. We don't start making irrigation plans when it is already already dry.
Let me butt in.
Yes.
Actually, okay, on that point, Odede is talking to the point, to the need for planning, long-term planning. But if you talk about long-term planning, then things like this needed to have been planned for in governments before.
Yes.
Yeah, because this government is a year now going into 1.5 years.
Yes.
So again, we are now mitigating effects of lack of planning of before. Now, going forward, again, what he's talking about, when government goes into Mukuru and the slums and the urban poor, it is because this, such a flooding causes a big magnitude of harm. For example, I just saw on the social media a house, the lady in Runda on a boat, circling around her house, almost on the roof, because the water has submerged everywhere. But we haven't had a case. The way he's saying is true, that we haven't had a case of a death or what.
Within.
But when this happens, because of means, they can protect themselves. That's what I said earlier.
Yes.
In fact, what they need to do is for the houses to be pulled down, because they are in the riparian. They know. You know, sometimes our people in the poor, urban poor, are excused because of ignorance and lack of that kind of information. Some of them, most of those houses, they don't build them. Most of the houses are landlord houses. People who come and build, exploiters, they build the houses and leave them there. The government has said, this house is not yours, you are renting. We give you 10,000. That's a mitigation. Until we get a long-term solution, we give you 10,000 to move to another house. This house is not yours, it's rented. Find a house that is safer. While the government is looking for long-term, it may include what he's talking about, the housing. The problem you have refused to also understand is that the delay in building these affordable houses was caused by litigations. By now, we would be having houses ready. If they were started on time, the way the president had envisioned, maybe we would be moving people. Most of those houses are either at 40%, 30%, 50%. They haven't been completed. Why? There has been a lot of interruption through litigations. But why the government must move into Mukuru, the Mukurus and Mathare and Kibra is because of the magnitude. When it hits, we lose 10, 20, 50 people at a go. The government, a sensible government, like Nairobi County government, like national government, cannot sit on its laurels wait for that to happen. And that's why the mitigation, we would be saying, why them? But the question is, where is the largest possibility for greater harm? Yeah.
Pretty much. All right, gentlemen, now, for the sake of time, then, I would like to move your thoughts to a completely different subject. This morning, we do have two. We're going to give you an update of the doctor strike in the country. Now, the courts have said, both of you, we're giving you 48 hours because there's been this back and forth blame between the doctors' union in the country and the government. They've said, we're going to give you 48 hours, but that later on. Now, one, Johnson Sakaja, a man who's been quite elusive when he's called by the Senate in terms of auditing the expenditure of the Nairobi County government, finally made his way to the Senate yesterday. A couple of things came out other than the big revelation that NMS left a 16 billion shillings pending bills expenditure that the county government really has to look into. What about the people who are working for Nairobi County government? Let's take a look at this particular one. Once we come back, we're in on it as well.
For the union makes us strong. Viva Kempidu, viva! Viva! Today marks the day 54 of our strike. And our role is to strike and strike and strike until we get a return to work agreement. I want to emphasize that a return to work formula that violates the sanctity of collective bargaining agreement is useless and is not in any way viable. And therefore we hope, based on the current situation in the country, that government will stop the chest-thumping attitudes and foot-dragging behavior in resolving this issue of strike. And when we go with them to meetings, they'll be there solely to resolve the issues rather than egos, as we have said earlier. Therefore, as KMPDU, all our National Advisory Council and negotiation team are ready in all these 48 hours to meet the government to resolve the issues. And as we say, our discussion is based on the sanctity of the CBA. There's no way, and there's no any other way that you can tell us, or you can reiterate, or you can tell us to believe that if we have a return to work agreement that is not anchored in the CBA, then the formula will be implemented. We have had promises before, and that's why we are focused on seeing commitments and results. We gave a strike notice on 6th of March 2024, and now 54 days later, we have seen government still struggling to understand some of the issues that we had put in place. We have seen that they have no will to implement them, because if they had a goodwill, from 6th of March to now in May, most of these things will have been done to show that they actually want to do them. But we are still back and forth on issues that should have been done in the right way. We are seeing them reinventing the wheel, like in posting of medical doctor interns. Yet, there's a clear guideline on how this should be done. We are seeing them reinventing the wheel on the issue of postgraduate training. We are seeing them not understanding very well that they owe us arrears over 7 years, yet the judgments of this particular matter. So it's a high time when you meet with them, they should not tell us it's their document or the highway, because that is what led for both teams to have a return to work agreement which was filed in court today.
The obstacle posed by ego-driven actions from the government should not impede the progress towards resolving this crisis and ending the strike promptly. Our collective bargaining agreement stands as a cornerstone of our negotiation.
Chama kitasimama na kumecha tapita, lakini chama kitasimama.
That's it. So that's exactly where we are. Ashak, it's moved from the government threatening the doctors to take them to court. Also moved from the doctors taking the government back to court. I mean, it started from the doctors taking the government to court. Now, the courts have looked at it and they've said, well, you can't keep on bringing each other here. So we're giving you 48 hours to solve out your issues. Is that, who is at pains here with this latest declaration by the courts?
You see, the truth is, the government need to do everything they can to help Kenyans who need the doctors in the hospital. Kenyans went out and voted. They didn't vote the doctors. They voted the government in power. Kenyans are paying taxes. They don't pay taxes to the doctors. They pay taxes to the government to organize everything with those taxes.
Yes.
I don't know why it was difficult for the CS Health to just sit down with the doctors from the very beginning and relook at maybe the new timelines, because the other government had agreed with the doctors on collective bargaining agreement, and they had agreed on how everything in it.
Yes.
The government says we don't have money. So for me, it was a matter of then how much time can we negotiate? It's like I owe you this, because that was the whole deal. Like, government owes us this much. So why wouldn't they just sit down and say, we are not negotiating the components of the CBA. We are negotiating the timeline of implementation, because the doctors came out and say our problem is not actually what is in the CBA. We had agreed with the other government on the component or the content of the CBA. Our problem is in implementing it. It has not been implemented for a long time, yes. And we have even gone to court as doctors, and we have waited all these years. So why do you think it was difficult for the Minister of Health to just sit down and renegotiate the timelines, not the content of the CBA? Maybe that would have saved us as a country. Because right now, probably doctors would have been back to the hospitals because they know the government owes us this, but they have requested a little more time to organize themselves to be able to implement all this. That is what we missed. Because now we went, it's like the government went back to start negotiating the content which they had negotiated with the other government. And so the doctors feel like we have been cheated. So what we had put here, this government has come into place and now wants to renegotiate the content again. So what will happen if this government again renegotiates the content, does not implement, the next government takes over, comes back and tells us again, let's renegotiate the content. So you will keep going like that. Why can't we stick to the content, discuss, renegotiate the timeline for implementation instead?
Sunday, here's the thing. When you look at how the courts have reacted in this, in fact, if you go back again, there's a time the courts gave the government a couple of days for them to implement the 2017 CBA that was agreed to by the doctors and the government. So the courts have continued to make their rulings on this particular case up to the point where the law in it, Sunday, doesn't make sense anymore, because the doctors are making reference to all the rulings that the courts have actually made on this particular issue, to the point where now the courts are saying, well, we are also in the middle. At this point, we're giving you 48 hours for you to agree and get back to work. Who's at pains to deliver at this particular point when they've been put on the same platform now?
I can tell you, Simba, all these protracted things is about Kenyan bad manners. And I heard my brother talking about systems thinking. The definition was different from what I learned.
Yes.
Systems thinking is when things are thought about in a broader sense, in totality, putting together. Like a car, when you think of a car, you can't think of a car as in with parts apart. You think of a car with carburetor, with everything. That's systems. I'm a student of systems, health systems management.
Yes.
Where I think of health in totality. And I have about 4 or 5 bad manners that I've seen in all this. The first bad manners is actually those contempt of court rulings. It started with the government. It go to the doctors. So like right now the court, all of them have lost the sanctity, the right to be.
Is that in front of the court?
Yes.
Yes.
Because even the courts, when they have been ordered, step aside, continue while we look into the legalities of the matter. They have not done. So nobody has, 2 wrongs don't make a right. That's one. 2, the doctors slept on the job at some point.
Yes.
And the medic, the health, the whole fraternity. When we were at Bomas in 2010, teachers came and said, we don't want TSC to be part of Ministry of Health. We want our commission. Police came, they said, we want our commission. Parliament came, said, we want our parliamentary service commission. As a health systems practitioner, from even then, I was pushing that we must have health systems commission and health service commission.
Yes.
The reason is the issues right now, by the way, given and even Odede will tell you, even from Migori, the facilities, health facilities since devolution have increased. Even the reach doctor to patient has actually been attended to. The budgets and whatever, like in Nairobi, right now we are having even eye operation of ophthalmology in Mama Lucy Hospital. Hitherto it was only in this place is called what? In Kikuyu.
Kijabe.
Kijabe, and there's this Kikuyu Hospital. And maybe in Sabatia in Maragoli. Right now we have a whole setup theater and what have you. And right now even in Nairobi, we are not complaining, and most of the counties, by the way, we are not complaining about drugs not being, in the hospital. That is not now the subject.
Yes.
Most of the issues right now about health is about HR. It's about this employment, this leave, this what. This needed, and you see, we have a devolved function of health, and we have what has remained at the national. So, like when you are talking about training, which is at national, and you are talking about doctors' employment and payment remuneration at county, there are bound to be conflicts. We need a separate body. And that's why, funny enough, when these guys will be given what they want, they'll go back to sleep again. Instead of looking at that long term,
yes,
and they are fighting that next time we have amendments of constitution, like when we were coming up with the BBI, we needed to see doctors there with the proposal that is very clear. We want health, HR functions, because in health systems we have pillars. I think there are 6 or 7. We have the health economics, we have health financing, we have health HR, we have health commodities and equipment, we have health what now you would call training, yes, and what have you, and all the empowerment and all.
Yes.
Those are various pillars of health, and we need to separate this health. Like if we have been able to separate the health commodities through KEMSA. Now KEMSA deals with the procurement and distribution of drugs,
yes,
and making them available. Why don't we do the same with HR, so that we solve this problem once and for all? The other bad manners that I see is for trade unions using election time to bargain. We saw that with the late Chadwick Adongo, and the teachers.
Yes.
In 1997, I think, around there. And they got Moi to give them hefty payment, only for Kibaki to come in 2002 and say, this is not doable. They usually bargain, and then the implementation date is pushed into the next election term.
Yes.
And that's what Uhuru just, when this thing was happening last time, and the truck went into 100 days or something, Uhuru looked at it in 2017 and said, tutafanya baadaye. We are going to give you, but later. This later, the interns have increased. There have been a backlog, all of them out here. You look at the economists were not involved. The National Treasury was not involved in that bargain. It was a state house affair with the doctors, and the guy has packed and gone back home. Now, when you talk about 206,000 shillings times the new numbers, because you first of all said we want you to take on all that are not engaged,
yes, sir,
and then you say, but at 206,000 per each, it becomes very difficult for government. And you know, when government tells you we have 70 for this, but we will take all that you want, the doctors missed an opportunity. That is the point. They would have said, sio sabini, basfanya mia. Then take, that's a bargain. But you hear them saying they are not taking anything less than a crossed T or a dotted I. They came for 19, they are getting 19. They have gotten 18 of their prayers out of 19. Surely in every bargain, if you get, even if you are going for marriage, wedding, dowry discussion, and you come all with 100, they start with 100 bulls, and you are able to bargain, They can't just get stuck and say it must be 100 or no girl. I think, lastly, Simba, my brothers and most of them are brothers because I see only one lady. They are not even gender sensitive anyway. I see them in exercise of thorax and wanting to have more airtime to express their English. In fact, I realize that there is a competition of English between who speaks good English. They want to prove to Kenyans that they are A students. Nobody has even questioned that. They enjoy this publicity and all of it is at the expense of Mwananchi. The government has really moved an inch and an inch. They have accepted 18 of those things. Some of them are already, the treasury said we have set aside money to start off immediately. For some cases, they have actually posted, some of them, they have given even letters of posting to the interns to report. Those counties that had not given car loans and what have you, all those emoluments, they have already given them out. The doctors that were in some counties that were waiting for posting to go for postgraduate education, they have already been given the leeway, like Nyeri, and themselves, you would hear them saying, like Nyeri has fulfilled almost all the requirements. Like Tarakanidi has done, Kakamega has done. So a number of counties have already fulfilled. Yet we will have people suffering. Lastly, I think, and we may want to blame Nahumicha, but there are decisions that were made in the last regime that still affect us today. And those decisions were in two areas, in education and in health. You know, before, those of us who went to school, like in private universities, we never used to get capitation, the help. The help we used to, as individual, I would go to help to apply. But it was not automatic. You get an A student being taken to posted by COOPS to a private university, and then public money follows him to develop a private university. It was never heard of. But a decision was made to start sending money to Kabarak. When I took my daughter to Kabarak University, I knew it was a private university because he could not take the courses that he was being offered at public university, and I could pay for it.
Yes.
So now when you take a child who has made A's points, and you take him to Kabarak, and you follow him with the public funds, what are you doing to Nairobi University? What are you doing to KU? That was a blunder. It was made by people who wanted to develop KU, Mount Kenya University and other private universities. That was selfish. The second decision that was made is to take NHIF money, and start paying for medication and treatment in private hospitals. Initially, it was only mission and these church-related hospitals, missionary hospitals, and public hospitals. Why? Because that is where mtu mdogo anapatikana. So if you encourage people to go to Coptic and we know the bills in Coptic, the one bill gobbles off the rest of the money that had been at NHIF. The government must now say NHIF pays for Mukumu Hospital and Kakamega or Kenyatta or Moi referral hospitals only. The private university hospitals should be attended to by people like us who have insurance, private insurance covers. And if you take your child to Mount Kenya, Daystar, Kabarak, pay for it. But the capitation should only be taken to public university so that we develop our public universities.
Pretty much. Gentlemen, let's take the last few minutes to see exactly what's going on at the Nairobi County government as well. Governor Sakaja met the Senate committee yesterday, and these are some of what we picked from that particular sitting, other than the fact that indeed NMS has left a 16 billion shillings pending bill that the county has to think about how to settle. Let's take a look.
Listen, why are we being asked to pay for this 1 billion? Yet the staff at NMS were both county and national.
The Public Accounts Committee members have, however, proposed that the Nairobi Metropolitan Services Management Team be summoned to answer to several other audit queries raised by the Auditor General for the financial year in question, after Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja honored a summon by the committee to answer to 2 audit queries by Nancy Gathongo.
From Nairobi to that entity. And the following year, there's also some money. The total amount that Nairobi County government sent to NMS was 27 billion. And then after that, a pending bill of 16 billion. So Nairobians need to be told how 43 billion was spent in 2 years. I told that PS Gadesha that, you people cannot try to twist the county government or to bully the county government into paying for what you incurred. Until they pay and conclude, they can't hand those to us. And we ask them to fast track so that we can finish these projects. Because now, going forward, if, for instance, I'll give you an example of Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, one of the buildings has a pending payment.
Sakaja, on matters of pending bills, remained adamant that the county government of Nairobi will not pay legal pending bills that run into 10 billion shillings. The city chief said that some of the claims which have been pending for years are questionable, and paying them will render crucial services to the ground. Sakaja proposed the formation of a task force to look into the payments, a move outlawed by Trans Nzoia Court. Sakaja is of mind that going forward, the county government should hire internal lawyers and put them on a retainer to avoid such a dilemma.
In most of these cases, there are letters of instruction, Governor, that originate from the county. There's correspondence between the county.
There's that. And there's a second part to this particular story that we're going to look at. So I'm just going to give you a minute each to respond to this one. That the Kenyans need to be told how that money was spent through NMS. And they're looking at a 16 billion pending bills that was left by NMS. But guess what? It was handed over to Nairobi County government. So that, as it stands, is a problem for Sakaja. Nashak.
Sure, it is. Definitely it is. You see, governments always inherit everything they get,
yes,
including liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is, for me, it's neither here nor there whenever government. I think Sakaja is just trying to learn from his boss at the national level, which would see a problem and want to push it aside and tell Kenyans, this is the other government.
Yes.
We know how government works across the world. And by the way, we are not being woken up in the morning and told, be the president of Kenya. You go out, campaign, ask people you want to be. By the time you're asking people you want to be, don't you know what you want to take over from? Mm-hmm. Sakaja was senator for Nairobi. Do you think, in the position of a senator of Nairobi, you don't know that all this was happening? Then he didn't do his work as a senator. Then we can say so. Because you cannot come from a senator who was oversighting the county government and defending the county government, including the allocation of resources that goes to that county.
Yes.
Then you take over 1 year, you're now trying to tell us Nairobians need to be told how this money was spent. Yeah. Why didn't we hear him calling the people who were in Nairobi then, who were spending those money, before the Senate committee, like now he's being called, and task those people to tell Nairobians how that money is being spent? What was he doing as a senator? So for me, that is neither here nor there. That is not something I even want to listen to.
Pretty much. Sunday, 1 minute.
Simba,
yes.
You move into a house, you don't know it's leaking until you are in it, until it rains.
It was the senator?
Yes.
It was the senator?
Of Nairobi.
No, yes,
not of
Kakamega.
Kakamega.
He was
of
a
Nairobi.
senator,
yes.
but senator is an oversight. He was not resident in City Hall. That's why I'm saying.
So why? What are you oversighting then?
When you move, like for example,
Yes.
the president comes in.
Yes.
And it's the Rosie state. He's not his Yatani is still the minister for national treasury at that time, and everything is locked up, and the president is in charge.
Yes.
Until you check over the mantles, and you are given the report card, and you are given the statements, is when you get to know what has happened.
Yes.
Sakaja got into a house. It had to rain for him to know it's leaking. Number one. Number two.
Yes,
number two. Yes. The situation at City Hall, I thought when my brother was starting will be realistic. The situation at City Hall, all of us know, it was a Fiat order, executive order, to take over from Sonko. Take over by an army man, who again, this army man is not retired. He's a serving army man, serving under the commander-in-chief. Nairobi was in a very bad state. When a commander-in-chief orders his soldier, an officer, to operate, the operation is different. In fact, by the way, most of the budget, the army, the KDF, not most, the KDF budget is never discussed in parliament.
Yes.
You've never known, you've known that?
Does it?
Yes. Because it is, now this situation was, because he took over, it was like a national security matter.
Yes.
Now, we should not lose the point. The governor of Nairobi is saying, during that point, and by the way, audit reports take long to come out. In this country, we know. We have never been on time on the audit reports. And Kadungu just gave that report of those years recently to the Senate. I think a month or 3 months ago. So we must be aware that we should actually be joining the governor to say, as Nairobians, we must know how 43 billion was utilized in 2 years, and how whereas the money for those bills was given 26 billion, how then did we end up with 16 billion as a pending bill? 6 billion this government has, the county government has since squared because it made sense. The 10 billion does not make sense.
Kiage, if we go in that line of thinking, then the begging question would be, is there a need to pay senators in this country? Because if Sakaja can be senator for Nairobi for 5 years, and Sunday want to say, until you get into that house is when you will know how it leaks and how it does not. So why did we pay Sakaja for 5 years to do what? What is oversight? Then you want to tell me that it is the other government that brought the army man and took over and all that. The senator, your first job in the constitution is to defend the county government. Did Sakaja see this?
Yes.
Did we hear, did you have any clip, any media house has any clip where Sakaja stood strong as the senator for Nairobi, telling the people then that we cannot give Nairobi to the soldiers. Nairobi needs to be the way it should be. We didn't hear him defending Nairobi anywhere.
By the way,
but now we are here talking about
it has to be on record.
Yeah, that's it.
It has to be on record.
10 seconds, please. We can step out. Yes, Sunday.
Sakaja is on record saying things are not good. But we must also know that the soldier was covered by an agreement, an MOU between Sonko and the national government.
We gotta end it there. We gotta end it there, gentlemen. We gotta end it there.
We must now, as Nairobians, demand our money.
How this
He's paid well.
How this goes is exactly what we do not know. Sakaja is saying, give me more time. And he's saying that we need lawyers even within the county governments that are paid on retainer, that are supposed to come in and protect the county governments from this sort of expenditures that we've seen here. Because indeed now is looking at 16 billion shillings pending bills expenditure.
But he has to be called.
And by the way, county governments now have, wait for it, 150 billion in pending bills. How is this going to be solved? You can imagine, what can 150 billion do to business people and business and the economy in general? Where is this money? Mashak, Sunday, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Take them back online and Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am Aki Agasimba. The hashtag is The Morning Drift, and we are at Lookuptv. See you tomorrow for another edition. Goodbye.